And now here's part 2 of our episode. I think that's what they call a hot track. I think that's what they might, those in the biz might call a hot track.
Yeah. Big ups to Sly and the Family Stone for that amazing bass line.
Yes. You mentioned that is a really excellent sample. I mean, in terms of, also, I think you also can tell so much about an artist by who they sample, especially, especially in hip hop nowadays. And you see the roots of that back in the 80s. So when you hear those samples, you can really tell you first of all, it's such a great thing for a young person to learn about other music, to learn about music they may not know from artists that they respect and are already listening to. So yeah, I think that's just that's worth noting. We're gonna give 4 golden bases.
That's great.
For that Sly and the Family Stone sample.
So is that going to Janet, or is that going to like Meg because of Janet, since Meg brought the album to us?
I think it's going to Janet. It's going to Janet.
Yeah, it has to go directly to Janet or Jimmy Jam. I mean, like.
Right.
What about Terry Lewis? Don't leave Terry Lewis out.
Oh, sorry, Terry Lewis too. Sorry. My bad.
I think they were her producers. I mean, from the album Control, all the way through, I think, up until not the last album, not the most recent album. Like, they stuck with her for a good chunk of her career.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and you can see things from this album go through. I mean, so we'll talk about Escapade later, but for me, the best track on the album, Escapade. But then she does Runaway for Design of a Decade as the single to go with that. It's the same key, and for me, it's a spiritual sequel to Escapade. Mm-hmm. It's, if you listen to them back to back, it's like, oh man, they did go on an escapade. Now they're gonna run away. It's so nice, Hope you got paid again. It's always nice to have 2 paychecks on a vacation, And then so she has the interludes on Rhythm Nation 1814, which I think are really important. I think interludes and skits are a mainstay of 90s and 2000s rap and hip hop albums. Like, think about Enter the Wu-Tang. Like, all the skits on there are like classic, but she does these interludes that are, I mean, like, she does this whole thing that we talked about with the like prejudice, no, bigotry, no. And then at the end of it, she goes, get the point? Good. Let's dance. And then we go into like the dancing romance section of the album, which is phenomenal. But she has the thing where she's goofing around in the studio and she says, you're not taping this, are you? And laughs. What has always felt to me to be a fake laugh. And it is a thing that I hear on the album. I go, oh man, you didn't have to fake laugh. Like, maybe Janet doesn't know how to have fun, but I don't want to believe that of her. Anyways, at the end of it, she goes, edit. And that same clip of edit comes up in All For You, which was 2001? And I think that was still Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam.
I think so. I can't remember what year that was. I clearly remember the video because, again, Janet Jackson is also very much a video artist.
Amazing videos.
I mean, like the sort of video suite that accompanies Rhythm Nation, aside from the initial video, which I think was Miss You Much, Rhythm Nation, and The Knowledge, all as one like big mega video.
Those are the black and white ones, but they're very specific, like that film one, not like Love Will Never Do black and white.
Right. Then that's where I feel like the album sort of transitions into where she's going, or at least her video transitions into where she's going. The album seems to be so socially conscious, but still with a dance groove to it. But then on the last single she releases from the album, she starts to, for lack of a better term, she starts to get a little sexy, or perhaps a better way of saying it is like get more in touch with her sexual side, it seems like.
For sure. And there's way more skin, Janet skin specifically, in that video than any of the other ones. The other ones are, the full paramilitary garb. Like, even the weird Escapade video is so weird. It's like Mad Max if it was a party.
Right.
Question mark. But then, yeah, you're right. Love Will Never Do. It's like scarves on a beach, and I mean, Jaimin Hunsu and Antonio Sabato Jr. and the circle thing where he's
he's in the thing.
Remember the circle thing, and he's I'm not describing this well for a podcast, but it's very very much a female gaze, I would say.
I had never thought it's funny you should mention Mad Max. I had never thought of Escapade as it's like they took the set of Carnival but like made it fun. Like it's that.
Yeah. You're like, got the point? Good, let's dance.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who is experiencing this album in its entirety, obviously I'd heard the singles before, but as somebody who's experiencing the album in its entirety, I was like, oh, there's such a like a push and pull between this very, between the love songs and then the more specifically politically motivated things. And it's fun to think about how those things are like kind of stitching themselves together over the course of the album.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the funny thing. It's like we have all this work to do, but also I miss you much.
Still gotta have a love song.
Back to me, like
right.
Like it's the personal and the political all at once. Like she can fight against illiteracy and bigotry, but also ache for her lost love.
And it feels like it's something that continues with, I mean, like, this is the album where she does it overtly, but I mean, I think about like, moving forward to The Velvet Rope, where she had the song Got Till It's Gone, and the whole video is, I think it was actually filmed in South Africa, wasn't it? Just to sort of building this awareness of apartheid in South Africa, but again with a song that is like really cool and that samples Joni Mitchell at the same time. I mean, like it sort of feels like how she's able to accomplish all of those things simultaneously is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's I don't think I'll get a lot of pushback for this. Clearly the best Jackson.
Very, very. I would have to agree. I think she's the best one.
I don't know. Have you heard the song "Centipede" by Rebe Jackson? I mean, I think it's that. I mean, underrated.
I have way more of a cultural knowledge of LaToya Jackson than Rebe, but I don't doubt it.
Right. I'm going to give that 2.5 centipedes. 2.5 centipedes for in Janet's favor, because really as we look at the vast arc of Jackson's over the many decades.
Yeah,
I believe that she's done quite well for herself. She's done quite well for herself. So I think 2.5 centipedes is at least what she gets for her legacy.
The centipedes for her legacy.
Hey, a centipede has 100 legs, and that's that's
a lot of legs.
That's 98 more than humans have. So
Michael, I'll add 98. I'll add 98 centipede legs to your 10 black cats. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that? I mean,
those are going to be some weird looking cats, I think is what we got here.
Fine.
Speaking of black cat though, I mean, re-listening to this album, I mean, first of all, Black Cat is the one song on the album that is Janet has sole writing credit for. And it's obviously the most, stick out like a sore thumb song on the album, because it's essentially like if Janet Jackson did 80s hair metal.
Right.
It's
what Janet Jackson as Lita Ford.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Oh man, Meg, look at you.
I mean, for me, like that's the song I had forgotten how much I loved that song when I was little. And I think, and this is a bold claim, I think that the song Black Cat is the origin of my musical tastes. because
Ooh.
it's got like the like pop appeal of Janet, who, you know, arguably a gay icon as well, but also like, you know,
Is that
guitars.
arguable? I mean, I think it's probably it's
I think
probably
it's
just
certified
upon, right?
gay icon.
That's it's very, very wise.
Like the
Tyler.
Babadook,
Give
I feel like is an arguable gay icon at this point in the Babadook lifespan. But Janet Jackson, is anyone arguing about that?
Correct. Tyler gets one Babadook for that.
One Babadook. Why,
but like a gay Babadook.
Noted.
The gay Babadook.
Yeah. Like the gayest Babadook.
Yeah, headcanon.
All right, I'll accept that.
But it's, I mean, like, I don't know. Just, I mean, listen, you get a little bit of everything on the album. Like, it's danceable. It's socially conscious. She's got guitars. She's got ballads, and you know, the like the trademark interludes that she's going to use for most of her albums going forward after that. In fact, I think even on the most recent album, which I've only listened to once ever, I think there's still interludes on that too. So I mean, I don't think she was the first one to do it. I'm not a music historian. I don't know that, but it's something that she's made work for her. And it kind of feels like we get to know her as a result of that. Like, yeah, maybe that laugh is fake, but also like I can imagine her hanging around in the recording sessions, like getting all giggly at some point, and, you know, and having a moment like that happen.
Yeah, you know, maybe I'm being too hard on the laugh. But, you know, sidebar on this interludes, the interlude Come Back to Me, interlude Come Back, I think, which is in the middle of the album and has the strains of Come Back to Me, which is later, but it's rain and thunder. Mm-hmm. So this is why I prefer CDs over tapes. When I was in 8th grade, I was in a program that competed in nerd science things, and we had to build a section of Planet X, and we made the whole thing out of paper mache, and you had to have your water at a certain pH that could be tested, and you had to have your soil at a certain whatever. So you had to like engineer how to get water at a high acidity level. You know, as Jen said, ain't no acid in this. But anyway, you have one part of the ecosystem where it was very temperate and tropical. And so I looped on a tape by myself in my room. It took me forever. That interlude of the thunder and the rain over and over on a full tape. It's like 10 seconds. It took me forever. And we got extra points for having a soundscape. And I was like, Janet does it all.
She keeps on giving.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good opportunity for us to reiterate the thesis of why we brought you here for this.
Oh, okay. Not to tell you about Planet X, or?
Well, I think what Planet X is important because it's a way in which this album like weaved itself into your life, right? Which is what. If we're talking about the grander idea of this, is that we have these albums that continue to touch us, right? And those albums often we consider perfect. So I guess I wanted to get from your perspective, when we gave you this brief for a perfect album, what were the standards that came to mind for you in that consideration? Like what was the rubric basically?
I originally came into it thinking, oh yes, it has to be a no skips album, obviously.
No skips, okay. Yeah.
And that's not this album for me, honestly.
Okay. Because
I do feel that living in a world they didn't make is extremely depressing and kind of heavy-handed, and I'm like, okay, we got it. So
that one's skippable for you, huh?
For me, yes. For me, it is skippable. So that kind of went out the window very, very quickly, because when the two of you came to me with, you know, this podcast idea, I spent a solid 2-3 days thinking about this kind of exclusively, and like, oh, what would be a perfect, I had long lists of like, well, maybe this, but maybe that, and eventually narrowed it down. And almost none of the albums I ended up sending to you, including this one, were a no skip album. So I think for me, the definition of perfect as it applies to Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation is I have perfectly received the intended message, which is we have work to do and we also have dancing to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a little bit how I live my life. Like my two of my strongest held values are that of hard work and celebration.
Yeah. And you believe that it achieves that message.
Absolutely. Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Because I was kind of wondering, when you're saying we have all these different, you have all these different kind of sectors, these different genres it goes into. And I think, is that something that you perceive strengthens the message of it? Or is it simply, okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if you were to find someone who had not heard this album and want to sell them on it, I think for whoever that person is, there is a window in. If it's someone who really likes, rock, you send them Black Cat. If there's someone that wants something really sensual and romantic, you send them, Some Days Tonight. If there's someone that's like, I just want to friggin' lose my mind in a layered and complex piece of music, send them the title track. There's so much. And there's just like, it's an amazing achievement of Janet and her producers to really look past, because she could have kept doing Control over and over. She could have kept doing like really good, solid pop music, but she had more in her, and everyone knew it that was involved in this, and they got it.
Yeah. And shout out to the track "The Pleasure Principle" on the Control album, and the music video that accompanies that as well. Again, she's a music video artist.
Like, unbelievable. No, it's true. And also, I tried to learn the choreography for a lot of this. It is so hard. I'm not a great dancer, like, let's be real, but like, oh my gosh, it's insanely complicated and complex and very, very precise. She's an incredibly precise dancer.
Mm-hmm. Have either of you seen that? This is very current, but there's an Old Navy commercial out right now with Adie Bryant, where it's her and a bunch of dancers,
where she moves well.
Right, and the whole time she's like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm a dancer now." And I was like, "This is how I feel. I feel like this whenever I've ever been on a dance call. If the twice that's ever happened, I've always felt exactly like Adie Bryant does in that situation. So I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, I feel that commercial. The first time I saw it, I was like, "This is the definition of actor who moves well."
Yes. Yes.
I mean, watch it. I mean, but there's something about her choreography though that like you just, even if like, I'm not a great dancer myself, but I want to learn it. Like,
I know.
Like it's the sort of thing you want to have like as a party trick, when we all start having parties again, like where someone puts on Miss You Much and you're like, "Oh, I got it. I got these moves. I can do it."
Well, because it's very intricate. It's very sharp. She's a very sharp dancer, but it's also extremely fluid. It's a very funny thing. So I specifically Miss You Much. I took a class that was taught by one of our friends who was teaching classic music video choreography, and Miss You Much was one of them. When I tell you, I became so frustrated by not being able to get the moves that I cried a little. In a dumb class with my friends, for which I paid $10 and brought wine. Like it. It's like, it's so hard. I can't get. Why can't I get it?
Yeah.
But it's so the thing is, it's very in music terms, it's very staccato from the waist up and very legato from the waist down. So your knees have to be liquid, but your elbows have to be right angles. It's insane.
Is she someone to you that makes you? And maybe you said this, so I just wanted to hear it again. Is she someone who makes you feel like you can? Is she the kind of dancer when you see her dance in the videos that makes you feel like you can do those movements, or Or is it like, oh, she's on another level? She's on the table.
She's on a different planet. She's on Planet Janet.
Okay.
I mean,
She's on Planet X.
She's on
Planet X.
Oh, Michael!
Oh, okay. That's a point for Michael.
Points. That's minus points.
That's 2 asteroids right into my skull for Michael.
I think, no, for me, it makes me want to be a better dancer. It certainly makes me well learn the moves. But I will say, when I am listening to Janet Jackson, and I do a solo private dance party all the time.
Yeah.
Basically
of
daily.
Course, yes.
Yeah, I
Bless
mean,
you.
you got to cook, right?
Meg Williams.
Yeah. So when I listen to Janet Jackson, I will say she is one of the musical artists that when I listen to her and when I dance to her, I feel completely untouchable. I feel cool. I feel sexy. I feel like I am staccato on top and legato on the bottom, even though I know I'm not.
Yes.
She is inspiring, and yeah, it's more, I think it's more envy than anything. I do wish I had that level of expertise in my body, and it's amazing.
Sure.
Like, she can do a body roll, like some of the best body rolls in the business.
It is like physical genius is essentially what it is.
For real. Yeah, for real. I mean, I just think
she gets. I think I'm gonna give 3 staccato legatos in her favor as well. I'll give her 6. Actually, I'll give her 6 staccato.
Well, yeah, because you got put
for her whole body of work.
Yeah, well, and 3 staccatos on the top, but legatos on the bottom. So
yeah. Right. So 6 staccato legatos for her.
Well, Tyler, I think it's time to check out the scorecard and see where this album sits here. Like, see if this
sounds to me like Janet Jackson is winning everything.
It's pretty. I will say that she's scoring very well, and we haven't even listened to another track, which is a great. So listening to the next track really might clinch it for us. But here's what I have for our scorecard right now. Michael, you're doing quite well on our tribunal today with 10 out of 10 black cats to start the day, with 98 centipede legs added to those cats, plus 2 asteroids right into my skull for the Planet X reference. But as far as Meg and our friend Janet go, we have 3 sets of pink suspenders, 4 golden basses, 2.5 centipedes, and 6 staccato legatos, which I think is way out ahead. It's gonna be hard to knock this one down, Michael.
I know. Well, Meg, are there any? Would you like to make your closing argument for Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814?
Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814 is the album of a lifetime. Mine specifically.
Wow, that is well said. Very, very concise.
Yeah.
No, I think, the last thing I want to say is just keeping in mind my 2 greatest values of hard work and celebration, but actually celebration first and then hard work. The words to the song Escapade and the feeling of Escapade, the greatest song on this album, really do speak to that, because her mind is tired. She worked so hard all week. She just got paid. She's got it made. She's ready to go. And then she wants to take someone to go celebrate that they don't have to work for 2 days. Like, what a joy. I think this album is good for a lot of occasions, but if you start playing this album at 4:00 p.m. on a Friday, and you are a person that generally works till about 5 p.m. on a Friday, you will come to the end of the album about the time it's time to sign off. And when Escapade plays, it is about the time to start wrapping up your email. And it is just absolutely perfect. Honestly, it's the perfect Friday afternoon album. Escapade is the perfect song to remind you to take joy in just sharing time with other people when you don't have to be on the clock. This is great. It's just so great. I love it.
I will back that up too about Escapade. I feel like when I hear the opening 2 notes of Escapade, I feel like I am just transformed to a celebration. Like it's an
Yes.
instant mood elevator as soon as you hear those first few notes. Yeah,
Right.
It is.
So
Well-
is it time to give our verdict then, Michael?
I think it is. Tyler, I guess I mean, I don't need to deliberate. I think my vote is in, but I mean, you haven't said too much yet, so I don't know. What do you think, Tyler? Does this?
It was hard, but I think the fact that that we've so perfectly framed it for the perfect time of the day and week for someone to experience this album for the first time, I think is such a gift, and I hope that our listeners will go do that. I think it's a perfect album.
It's a perfect album. It's a perfect album.
Perfect album.
Love!
It's official. Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation 1814 is a perfect album.
Minneapolis!
Minneapolis. I was about to say.
So I think to close out our time together, Meg, what song? I have no idea what you're going to say, but what song do you think we should end this episode with to give our listeners just that last taste of this album?
There is but one song. It is Escapade.
Excellent. I
Thank
couldn't
you.
agree more.
Thank you for coming, Meg. You're
thank you
you're
so much for having
truly
me.
a gift. Truly a gift in our lives.
Y'all are the best. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to re-listen to this album that reminds me of being 10 years old again. So
Yeah, and only the good things about it, you know?
yes, only the good things about being 10 years old. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is strange when you think of the last two songs on the album, but that's fine. Whatever. We're not going to think about that.
We didn't know.
We didn't know. We were Catholic. We didn't understand.
You couldn't.
Exactly.
We hadn't had sex ed yet. All right. Thank you so much, Meg. Thank you all so much for listening. Without further ado, let's go on an escapade, shall we?
Minneapolis!